Topic: 7 secrets that make older men instantly irresistible. Women notice every time. There's a moment in every man's life where something shifts. You look in the mirror and realize, you're not the young guy anymore. You don't party like you used to. You don't chase the same highs. And maybe, for a second, you wonder, do women still notice me the same way they used to? Do I still have that pull? That power? That magnetism? And here's the brutal truth that no one says out loud: a lot of men fall apart right there. They either shrink, or they overcompensate. They start chasing younger fashion trends. They try to act 25 again. They become desperate for attention. They try so hard to prove they're still relevant, that they forget the deep, masculine power that only comes with age. But you're different. Or at least, you want to be. Because you know something most men never figure out. Your age isn't your weakness, it's your edge. You've lived. You've failed. You've succeeded. You've learned. And in that process, you've built something that number 20-something can compete with. Emotional gravity. Psychological strength. Quiet confidence. Presence. That's what women truly want. That's what they can't stop noticing, even when you don't say a word. It's not about your hairline. It's not about your abs. It's not about being flashy, loud, or hypermasculine. It's about how you carry yourself. The way you enter a room. The way you make decisions. The way you don't flinch when she tests you emotionally. The way you stand still, when every other man is dancing for her attention. That's what makes women pause. That's what makes her lean in. Not because you begged for it, but because you radiate something deeper than charm. You radiate certainty. You're not chasing her approval. You're giving her clarity. You're not fighting for attention. You are commanding presence, with fewer words, and more truth. You want to know the real secret? Younger men chase women. But women chase older men, when those men have stepped fully into their grounded power. That's what we're unlocking today. Because women do notice older men. In fact, they crave older men, when those men show up the right way. Not the needy, insecure, overcompensating kind. But the rare kind. The kind that speaks slowly, moves intentionally, and holds eye contact like he's not afraid of what she feels. The kind who knows himself. The kind who doesn't need to prove, because he's already embodied. This video is for that man. Or the man ready to become him. I'm going to show you 7 psychological secrets that make older men instantly irresistible, not in a cheesy, pick-up artist kind of way, but in a calm, authentic, stoic way. Because once you understand how women actually experience attraction, you'll stop trying to compete with younger guys. You'll realize, they're not your competition. Because they don't have your depth. They don't have your strength. They don't have your scars, and that's what women trust. So if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever thought your best days were behind you, if you've ever wondered why she pulled away and gave her energy to someone else, then this video might just change the way you see yourself, and the way women see you, forever. Let's begin. Let's get something straight before we even begin. This isn't going to be another shallow video telling you to dress better, hit the gym, or buy cologne. You've heard all that before, and sure, it helps. But if you think attraction is about wearing a fitted blazer or having perfect teeth, you're playing the surface game. And the surface game is a young man's game. You're not here for surface. You're not here to act younger, pretend cooler, or fake confident. You're here because you want to understand what truly draws women to older men, not sometimes, not by accident, but consistently and powerfully. Because somewhere deep down, you've already felt it. That something about you is different now. You may not have the same stamina, the same energy, or the same boyish spark. But what you do have, is more important. Stillness. Weight. Emotional presence. And that, if you learn how to use it, will make you unstoppable in the eyes of women who are tired of boys, and starving for a man. See, most people talk about aging like it's a problem. As if every year that passes, you lose value. As if you're supposed to shrink, settle down, disappear quietly. Let me tell you something. That's the biggest lie you've ever been told. Because the truth is, if you do it right, if you stop resisting time and start owning it, you don't lose value with age. You become rare. And rare is irresistible. Because while younger men are still chasing validation, chasing sex, chasing success, chasing meaning, you're stepping into a phase of life where all of that can be replaced with something far more powerful. Clarity. Direction. Peace. Depth. Leadership. And those are the very traits that women are hardwired to respond to. You see, women crave certainty. Not just confidence, certainty. The kind of masculine calm that makes them feel safe, grounded, seen, and desired without being pressured. And if you've lived, if you've lost, if you've loved, then you've already got the raw material. You've already got the wisdom. You've already got the presence, you just need to polish it, embody it, and stop hiding it behind old stories that say, I'm too old, or, my time has passed. Because here's the truth, you are not past your prime. You're just now stepping into it, if you're willing to let go of who you were, and become who you were always meant to be. So if you're done chasing women who don't care, if you're tired of trying to compete with younger guys who have charm but no backbone, if you've reached a point where you want to attract with energy, not effort, then this video is for you. Because what I'm about to show you are not tips, they're psychological switches. And when you flip them, you change how women experience you. Not just how they look at you. Not just how they flirt. But how they feel when they're around you, and more importantly, how they feel when you're not around. We're going to break down the 7 secret traits that make older men irresistibly attractive, and most of them don't require money, looks, or a perfect life. All they require is a shift in how you carry yourself as a man. Once you get this, you'll realize something powerful. It was never your age that held you back. It was the story you told yourself about what your age meant. Let's rewrite that story, starting right now. 1. Emotional composure is magnetic. Let's be brutally honest. Most men today are emotionally weak, not because they want to be, but because they were never taught how to sit with discomfort, how to observe their reactions, how to lead their emotions instead of letting their emotions lead them. And in today's overstimulated world, where men jump from one dopamine hit to the next, emotional stillness is becoming one of the rarest traits a man can have. But for older men, those who've lived through loss, betrayal, heartbreak, failure, something powerful starts to emerge if they've paid attention. Composure. Not fake calmness. Not forced alpha behavior. But deep, unshakable emotional composure. That quiet, slow-burning masculinity that doesn't flinch when tested. That doesn't panic when ignored. That doesn't explode when challenged. And when you carry that presence, women feel it. Because women, even the strong, independent, intelligent ones, are constantly scanning for one thing: safety. Emotional, psychological, and energetic safety. Not control. Not manipulation. Safety. And nothing communicates safety more powerfully than a man who doesn't get pulled into chaos. A man who, when she's upset, doesn't immediately try to fix her. A man who, when she's distant, doesn't beg or overtext. A man who, when the world throws heat his way, doesn't melt, he breathes. That kind of presence is like water in a desert. It's what most women crave, even if they don't have the words for it. Imagine this: she's emotional, maybe even frustrated with you. She throws out a test. Maybe she's short with her words. Maybe she says something sarcastic. Maybe she withdraws to see if you'll chase. Most men? They crumble. They get defensive. They explain. They react. But you? You pause. You look her in the eye, calm, unbothered, and say something like, I hear you. Let's slow down for a second. That moment, that gap between her storm and your response, is where respect is born. Because now she knows, you're not emotionally fragile. You can handle tension. You're not just a lover, you're an anchor. A lighthouse in her emotional hurricane. You don't lose yourself when she's lost in her emotions. You stay grounded. And because you're grounded, she finds her way back to herself through you. Emotional composure doesn't mean you're a robot. It means you don't react out of fear, insecurity, or ego. You respond with strength, intention, and clarity. And that is irresistibly masculine. 2. You've transcended approval seeking. Here's something most men will never figure out in their lifetime. The moment you stop needing her approval is the moment she becomes most attracted to you. But let's go deeper. When a man seeks approval, he loses polarity. He gives up his leadership. He becomes small, agreeable, malleable. And women don't want a man who bends to be liked. They want a man who stands in truth even if it costs him the connection. And that's where older men, if they've done the work, gain an almost unfair advantage. Because after enough life experience, after enough losing yourself just to be loved, something changes. You realize. Approval is fleeting. Pleasing others never made you whole. And chasing validation only made you forget your own value. So you stop. You stop overcomplimenting. You stop performing. You stop apologizing for your standards. You start speaking your mind, calmly, without arrogance. You start asking yourself what you actually want, not just what she wants. You start holding eye contact, not to intimidate, but because you have nothing to hide. Women feel this immediately. They feel it in how you speak with calm certainty. They feel it when you don't rush to fill silence. They feel it when you don't chase, not because you're playing games, but because you're full. Here's the brutal truth. When a man needs a woman's approval, she instinctively knows he can't lead. And if he can't lead himself, how can he ever lead her? That subtle shift, from seeking to choosing, flips everything. Because now you're not the guy hoping to be liked. You're the man who silently evaluates. Is this woman aligned with my peace, my vision, my values? That inner strength is felt before you ever speak a word. It's in your posture. It's in your tone. It's in your silence. And that silence is powerful. Because most men fill silence with noise, hoping it'll make them seem interesting. You let it breathe. Because you know you don't need to be liked, you need to be real. And real men? Rare men? They get chosen last, but loved the longest. Because the man who doesn't need her is the one she ends up needing most. Emotional composure and transcending approval seeking aren't pickup tricks. They're not short-term strategies. They're evidence of a man who's evolved. A man who has faced himself. A man who has nothing to prove, and therefore, proves everything. And in a world full of anxious, approval-starved, performative men, you'll stand out instantly. Not by being louder, but by being stiller. Not by having more, but by needing less. And that's when she feels it, deep in her body. Not just attraction, but respect. Not just chemistry, but curiosity. Not just interest, but emotional safety. And once she feels that, she doesn't just want you. She chooses you. Because you are the calm in the chaos. The man who doesn't flinch. The man who leads, by being. 3. You know the power of silence. In a world obsessed with noise, everyone yelling to be heard, selling, posting, performing, a man who knows how to be silent, becomes magnetic. Not because he doesn't have anything to say, but because he only speaks when it matters. Younger men fear silence. They talk endlessly. They try to be funny, charming, interesting, all the time. They fumble through awkward pauses. They throw out filler words. They keep going even when nothing needs to be said. Why? Because they haven't yet learned the power of restraint. But an older man who's done the inner work, he knows silence isn't empty. It's space. It's gravity. It's command without noise. When you enter a room and don't say a word, but the room feels your presence, that's when silence becomes your power. Women notice this instantly. They notice how you don't need to dominate a conversation. How you allow space for her to speak. How you listen without preparing your next clever line. How you're not filling the void because you're afraid of her judgment, you're simply allowing connection to breathe. And that's rare. Because women are used to men performing, not men observing. They're used to men who talk over them, not men who invite them to open up. They're used to men who interrupt, not men who are completely present. Your silence makes her slow down. Your silence makes her feel seen. Your silence makes her curious. Because if you're not trying to impress her, if you're not trying to force attraction, then you must be confident, composed, and at peace with who you are. And that, my friend, is incredibly seductive. 4. You're not in a hurry to impress. When you're young, you think you need to prove yourself. You want to be the funniest guy in the room. The smartest. The one who tells the most outrageous stories. The one who gets the girl's number in the first 5 minutes. But when you've lived long enough, when you've failed, succeeded, lost, and grown, you realize something most men never do. The man who's trying to impress her will always seem less impressive. You don't need to show off your car. You don't need to drop names. You don't need to talk about your grind or your hustle or your wins. Why? Because the more you talk about it, the more it looks like you're compensating. But the older, high-value man doesn't rush to be understood. He knows that if he's truly powerful, she'll feel it. Not through what he says, but through who he is. Instead of pushing for admiration, he allows curiosity to build. He lets silence speak. He lets his energy speak. He lets the quality of his presence do the heavy lifting. He's not rushing to win her over, because he already knows his value. And paradoxically, that's what wins her over. Because when a woman senses you're not seeking her approval, not waiting for her laugh, not tailoring your personality to be liked, she leans in. Not because of what you're doing, but because of what you're not doing. You've become the man who doesn't need to be impressive, because you're already impressive in the way you hold yourself. And that's what sticks in her mind long after the conversation ends. 5. You're selective with your attention. Let's be honest, most men are starving for female attention. They light up at the first sign of interest. They validate women instantly. They pour compliments like honey on everything that moves. They're available at the first text. They don't vet. They don't observe. They just react. And women can feel this desperation a mile away. But you've grown past that. You don't hand your attention out for free. You've become selective. Not to play games. Not to be arrogant. But because your time, your energy, your peace, they're valuable. And you don't just give them to anyone because they're pretty. When you meet a woman, you're not thinking, how do I get her to like me? You're thinking, is she worth letting into my world? That shift changes everything. She's no longer the prize. You're not either. The connection itself becomes sacred. And both people have to earn it. Now you observe. You notice how she speaks about others. How she responds to tension. How she treats silence. How she handles boundaries. Because you're not looking for a fantasy. You're not infatuated. You're grounded in reality, and your attention reflects that. And that's where true attraction is born. When a woman senses that you're not easily impressed, she wants to impress you. When she sees you're not chasing, she leans in. When she feels that you're still evaluating, she starts to bring her best self forward. Why? Because you've made your attention scarce. Not as a tactic, but as a reflection of your standards. And scarcity breeds value. Now your presence means something. Now your time means something. Now your attention makes her feel like a woman, not just a conquest. That, my friend, is irresistible. 6. You bring peace, not pressure. The modern woman is tired. She's been approached too many times by men who want something from her. She's been love-bombed, ghosted, overwhelmed. She's been made to feel like she has to perform to be liked. But then, she meets you. And suddenly, there's no pressure. You're not rushing. You're not convincing. You're not trying to lock her down or escalate too quickly. You're just there. Calm, present, attuned, at peace. And your peace, that non-reactive, non-performative energy, becomes a balm to her nervous system. She doesn't have to impress you. She doesn't have to figure you out. She doesn't have to win your affection. Because you're not withholding anything. You're simply not in a rush. You're present. And that presence, without demand, allows her to finally relax. She's not used to it. She's used to men who chase her with intensity, then disappear when she opens up. She's used to men who say all the right things, then push for sex. She's used to performance, not peace. But when she's with you, she feels something her body hasn't felt in years. Safe. Safe to laugh. Safe to be quiet. Safe to be feminine. And once a woman feels that with you, she starts to bond with you emotionally, deeply. Because most men bring pressure. But the rare man brings peace. And peace, once tasted, becomes addictive. 7. You've turned experience into wisdom. Let's get real. Aging doesn't automatically make you better. Some men just get older, but stay bitter, resentful, angry, and stuck in boyish mindsets. But you've taken your years and turned them into wisdom. You've made mistakes, but you've learned from them. You've been hurt, but you've healed. You've chased the wrong things, and found what really matters. And because of that, your energy carries weight. You're not just older. You're seasoned. You've stopped blaming others. You've stopped chasing fantasy. You've stopped needing to prove anything to anyone. You've grounded yourself in who you are. And that kind of presence? It's rare. It's calming. It's powerful. Women feel it in your voice. In the way you hold eye contact. In the way you speak less, but mean more. In the way your stories carry truth, not performance. You're not trying to impress her with your past. You're just letting her see that you've lived. And when a woman senses that your past hasn't broken you, it's built you, she feels a level of trust most men never earn. Because you're not just a man with a history. You're a man with insight. A man who's grown. Who's healed. Who knows himself. And that is the rarest kind of man there is. So now you know. These 7 secrets aren't pickup lines. They're not manipulation. They're not about changing who you are to attract someone else. They're about remembering who you are at your core, and removing everything that gets in the way of that. Because the truth is, attraction isn't about chasing. It's not about gimmicks. It's about alignment. Depth. Power that radiates from within. And as an older man, you don't need to compete with youth. You just need to own your edge. Your stillness. Your wisdom. Your presence. That's the real game changer. So if this video resonated with you, if something inside you clicked, even for a second, then I invite you to do 3 simple things. Backhand index pointing right first, hit that like button, not just for the algorithm, but to remind yourself that you're serious about showing up as your most grounded, magnetic self. Backhand index pointing right second, subscribe to Stoic Stream. This channel isn't for the average man. It's for the few who want to think deeper, live truer, and lead from inner strength. So if you're on a path of becoming, not performing, you're in the right place. Backhand index pointing right third, tap the bell icon, because we drop weekly content that isn't watered down or surface level. These aren't feel-good quotes. These are raw, honest insights about attraction, masculinity, purpose, and power. And finally, drop a comment below and tell me which of these 7 resonated with you the most. Which one are you already embodying? And which one do you feel called to step into more? Because real transformation isn't just watching videos. It's engaging, reflecting, owning your process. And if you made it this far, I already know one thing. You're not like most men. You're building something deeper. And that's rare. Until next time. Keep your mind sharp, keep your energy grounded, and never forget, the older you get, the more dangerous you become when you choose evolution over ego. I'll see you in the next one.